Hola y bienvenidos a la Daily Hustle. Soy Enrique Byrnes y presidente de la mejor cerveza. Know about that Port No Filter Network. Will the Thrill Clark. He will be on tonight. Miguelito San Dieguito not with us today. But back in rare form as always, the president of USA Baseball, John C. Gall. Gall, before you even say hello, we want to properly salute you. So 2 fingers up in the sky right now. Ready? Yes, 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 yes. Woo! What's up, dude?
All right. Happy to be back.
Good to have you.
Pleasure.
It's nothing like a good old handshake, huh?
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, none of this, whatever they do these days, right? Our kids got that all figured out. Stay true to our generation.
So first and foremost, we need to get to our sponsor, Bet Online, the number one online gambling destination where we celebrate all things action. Go to Bet Online to get the latest news, scores, odds, predictions, and don't forget to put in the promo code BLEAV, capital BLEAV, to get 50% off your first deposit. All right, Gall. First of all, good to have you up here. And you wanted to talk about a game that I saw the highlights of, and I just couldn't fucking believe it, man. One of the best games, at least highlights of a game that I've ever seen. And I thought to myself, if somebody was so lucky to sit down and actually watch, I imagine, this 3.5-hour marathon, what a treat they were privy to. You were the one that sat down and watched that game between Florida and Clemson the other night, college baseball.
Yeah, I'm in the garage cleaning out and, put it on the TV, look up, bottom of 9 or no, top of 9, 3-run homer to tie it at 9-9. I'm like, wow.
Center fielder, Canarella.
I'm like, wow, this is what a game. I scream at my son. I'm like, oh, come in the garage. This is amazing, whatever. About 2.5 hours later, the game ends. I mean, this thing goes and turns into a drama. I think it was a 5-hour game, which is next to impossible with the pitch clock these days, right?
Yeah.
And they go back and forth. And the drama of the game is at the end where a Clemson guy hits a home run, right, who was 0 for 6. Their leadoff hitter's 0 for 6 and hits one about 450 feet to right field.
So that was Canarella.
Yeah. He hit
center fielder.
Yeah, the first home run, I can't remember who hit it. I don't know all these guys, all the names. I'm just watching this as just a casual fan. And this guy just smokes it. The place goes nuts for the second time because even though they're the visiting team, they're actually playing at their home park. And he takes the bat as frustration of 0 for 6 and throws this thing as hard as you could possibly throw it after turning around and showing the whole crowd. Yeah,
but this was a go-ahead home run.
This is the go-ahead home run right now to go like
Canarella.
It's 10-9 or whatever, okay? So he hits this one, throws it down, gets all pumped up. I mean, the place is going berserk as he rounds the bases. And then Bellarmine grad, right, who's their head coach, right, Bakich, right? It was
you guys almost hired him at Stanford a few years
so
back.
He's the head coach now at Clemson. He was at Michigan, took them to the College World Series for Michigan, and he's there, and he's full of piss and vinegar like a lot of these college coaches are, and he ends up out on the field, and we can't tell what's going on. Like it looks like maybe they're tossing the guy that hit the home run is what the announcers are thinking, but we really don't know. He gets tossed. The other assistant coach, who's Jack Leggett, who's the son of the long-standing, like very famous 40-year coach at Clemson, who's now the coach there, gets tossed. They both get tossed, and Leggett does this is old school 70s baseball, right? I mean, the manager that just goes out and everything but picking up the bases and throwing them in the outfield. He's chasing the umpires all over the field, screaming at each of them one by one, and then turns around and looks back at the crowd and gives a let's effing go. To the crowd as loud as possible, and they turn the music on. Yeah, starts flexing and the whole thing. And as fun as that was
Bakich who was doing that.
Yeah, it was Bakich. Yeah, who had gotten tossed, and we don't know. The player did not get tossed. We never really got a full explanation of why those two got tossed in the moment and what happened. Anyway, Florida comes back and kicks their ass in the next inning, and the game's over. because when I looked at it and after I'm like, oh, these guys lost focus, while Florida's sitting there, pissed off and they still have their last legs and they get like 5 hits in a row and the game's over. They beat them by 2, or beat them. And it was like, and you saw this giant, testosterone really build of the crowd, I would call it, or whatever. But it didn't help them in the game. So they lost. And now congratulations to the Gators. They're going to the College World Series.
So certainly one of the best games, obviously, that led to the Gators going to Omaha is Kevin Sullivan, I believe, is the head coach at Florida. He's done a fantastic job there. The Bakich thing, it was interesting because he was at Michigan, had an opportunity to go to Stanford, and turned that down when Dave Esker ended up taking over. And then he ends up at
Clemson. Yeah.
What's your take on just college baseball in general? Because now that the Pac-12 is going to be gone, you have Stanford and Cal joining the ACC. You have UCLA, USC joining the Big Ten. Where Arizona and Arizona State,
the Big 12.
Big 12.
Yeah.
I don't even think you've been on, and we've even talked about the demise of the Pac-12. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, not to get into the Pac-12 so much, but they're joining great historic baseball conferences. The ACC is a great place to land for their baseball program. Right now, college baseball is the ACC and, of course, the SEC. So I don't know what it's going to look like. I think you still have strong enough baseball on the West Coast and tradition. And I know even, if Stanford hosts a regional, they pack it in and sell it out, which is great, but when you really get to the weekly support on the 3-game series, you go to Clemson, it's jammed. I was down at North Carolina earlier this year, and watched them against Notre Dame. And it was it was jammed. It's really, college baseball's in a great spot right now. Especially as they've contracted the minor leagues and we have less teams.
Yeah.
There's more good players that stay in baseball, and which makes the college baseball even a higher level.
So College World Series field is set. 5 top 8 seeds, including number 1 Tennessee, headed to Omaha. So you are very familiar with Omaha. It's been 3 of your 4 years at Stanford, having the opportunity to go to Omaha. If I'm not mistaken, you're still the all-time hits leader, not only at Stanford in the Pac-12, which is now will never be broken.
Yeah, it was unbreakable.
But if I'm not mistaken, you're the hits leader in the College World Series, or damn near the top.
Yeah, I'm close. Yeah, I had one really big year in '99, I remember. But we had
just the fact you got to go 3 years. That alone,
which was incredible. And I lost the most difficult game to lose, which is the national championship game, up 3 runs, with 5 outs to go, and we ended up losing that game against LSU in 2000. But it's a great event. If anybody has a chance to go. It's a week-long, event in Omaha. You can go to any 2-3 games. You can go to the last series. But I'm looking forward to heading out there again this year. But anyway, yeah, I'm excited for it. I think a number 1 seed hasn't won it since Miami did or something back 20-something years ago, I read. It's so Tennessee's been up there for the last few years. But anyway, we'll see. So there's always just fun games. It's kind of March Madness, especially in the super regional weekend.
So the first round matchups is North Carolina versus Virginia, Tennessee versus Florida State, Kentucky versus NC State, and Texas A&M versus Florida. I saw the Kentucky coach with a real emotional post-game speech when they were going to Omaha, and how I think it was the athletic director who took a chance on him. He had never been a head coach at any level. And the fact that, all he ever wanted to do in his life was coach Kentucky. It's pretty cool to see. You talked about the curse of the number 1 seed. It says, can Tennessee become the number 1 overall seed since Miami in 99 to win the national title? You were there in 99, weren't you?
Correct. Yeah, that was we actually lost a game that was even more wild than the Clemson game, back and forth. I think we were down 5 runs and came back and tied it, and back and forth. We lost to Florida State, who lost the next day to Miami 6-5.
So
that year.
So here's the issue. It says the Volunteers head to Omaha with college baseball's most frightening offense. They lead the nation with 173 homers, 22 more than any other team, and have 5 regulars in the lineup with an OPS of at least 1,000. So you and I both know, number one, this isn't Rosenblatt anymore. This is a fucking cavernous ballpark that it's really hard to hit the ball out of. And once you get down to the nitty-gritty here, pitching and defense wins baseball games. That's why you guys at Stanford always made these deep runs into the season and went into Omaha, where I could just speak about our UCLA team in 97 that went. I would have put our offense, I think if you put ballpark factor in where it put us against LSU, which that year was one of the greatest offenses of all time, I think we would have been right with them.
I totally agree.
Right.
Yeah, so Jackie Robinson at night was not an easy place to hit down at UCLA. But the thing that happens out in Omaha, and this is true with most Midwest parks out there, it's just which way is the wind blowing? So you can show up one day and it's blowing straight out. And this is still true in Omaha. And so there will be some games where the ball's flying, but when it's blowing in, I mean, good luck.
Yeah.
Like getting a ball out. And even Rosenblatt had that a little bit, but Rosenblatt sat up on a hill. It tended to go out more. But there was even days there where it was coming right in.
Well, let's talk about this because we had a really fascinating conversation coming back from pickleball last night. And you were talking about the fact that the BB Core bats, which all the kids basically start swinging at 14U and they end up swinging them all the way through college, have been detrimental to the game for the sense that all of a sudden you put a drop 3 in a 14-year-old's hands or a 13-year-old's hands that's not fully developed, and hitting becomes really hard. You then brought up something that just made light bulbs go off, and it's like, wow, I just thought they were illegal. It's something that you brought up, I believe, to the bat manufacturers, or maybe it was the NCAA, that why do you only have drop 3s with BB Core? Because BB Core is a technology that doesn't allow it to really trampoline back at the pitcher or the other fielders. But why is it that you don't have drop 4s and drop 5s when it comes to these bats? Explain that.
Yeah, so it's really just development. It's a standard of how the ball comes off of the bat. And I talked to a guy that works in the bat world and the technology side of it, and said they actually can make a -4 BB Core or -5 BB Core. They just haven't. So anyway, the hope is that we're going to get those out there. And why they haven't been made, I think I would say it's short-sighted. And it's a conversation that should have happened a few years back. But yeah, so I'm sure some kids have stopped playing baseball because it is really difficult if you haven't hit puberty yet.
Well, the game just slows down. I mean, I watch a game at 50-70, right, which is basically what we coach it, let them play, and just 12U travel ball. I watched Little League even at 46-60, which is that's too small. Yeah. But at the same time, for a lot of the kids out there, it's not too small. And it actually, one of the things I talked to my guy Dan, who's he's out real high up there in Little League out in Williamsport. And Dan was saying, I said, why don't you guys go to 50-70, especially when you get to the All-Stars and whatever. And he's like, you know what? He goes, we just like the game being fast. It's fast. And he's right. Right?
Yeah, he is right. It's almost like those softball games, which are fun to watch, right?
Very fun. And someone told me the argument the other day. They said they're watching the College World Series or College Regionals, and they were watching the Women's College World Series, and they were flipping back and forth. And it was a dad that had a daughter that played softball and a son that has a kid that played baseball. He goes, I could not turn it away. I turned on baseball. It was boring. I turned on softball. I thought it was electric.
Yeah. No, I know it is. It's fast paced. It's great. I mean, and I don't watch softball any other time of the year, and I don't have any, daughters that play. But when it comes on, it's like you get glued to it. My boys love it too. We sit there and watch it together. All
right, Gall. We only have a few more minutes with you, so let's get right into this article that I'm going to bring up with Will Clark tonight. I've sent it to him. I found it fascinating, and I don't want people to think that I'm here to judge this article collectively. I think I would like to go over each of these comments and just talk about them. And right now, get an opinion from you on a few of the comments.
Yeah, read them to me, and I'll tell you what I think, because I glanced at it this morning.
Okay, MLB players hear the criticism from former pros. Here's which comments irritate them most. That is the title of the article. It is written in The Athletic. So here are some of the comments that irritate the current players. Quote, I think the most irritating thing is like when some guy swings at a pitch in the dirt or chases a pitch and they're like, what was he looking for? Like it's a hard game. Sometimes you see something and the ball does something different. Your thoughts?
My thoughts are we heard the same crap. Like from everybody. I mean, that's the stuff. That's the stuff I'd hear from the friggin' announcers in St. Louis, or you'd hear from your. Hey, that's part of being a big leaguer. That's part of being a big leaguer right there. I'm sorry. Like, yeah, better hitters lay off that stuff. And you know what? Things were nasty when we played, and they're nasty now too. Like, so just I mean, you get criticized, and that's just the way the game is. So that's just be a little more thick-skinned, in my opinion, on that one.
An American League player put it this way: "Quote: Do you think Babe Ruth ever saw a slider?"
No, actually, I'm not sure if he really did, but like, or something that is today. Now the game's changed. I'm not gonna, especially Babe Ruth back in the day. It's gradually changed. It's been relatively similar though, I think, for the last 50 or 60 years, or if you go back maybe 70 years. I mean, you got to remember, you African Americans weren't allowed to play when he was playing. It wasn't an international game. It wasn't as deep. But once that barrier was broken, there's a lot more pitching out there. So. My point on my one on that is no, he didn't. Would Babe Ruth be, a Hall of Famer today? Absolutely. Those are, I don't think that's debatable with what his talent level was, but no, I don't know if he's really seen what a slider looks like today.
But they were manipulating the baseball back then the same way they are now. They were changing speed. So I think people
hold on.
Whether you called it a slider, they called it something else. The point is they were trying to keep Babe Ruth off balance. They didn't do a very good job of it. And my counter argument, if you want to try to talk shit on Babe Ruth at this point, is which one of you motherfuckers are hitting more home runs than any other team? Because that's what that guy did. He was that much better than everybody else in the league at the time.
If I want to jump on your side as well, very simple. Spitballs. Balls were cut all the time, and if anybody is throwing a ball that's cut, I know you can cut it on the left side in the spots. This thing can run literally from your shoulder over here. So no, was it a slider? Yeah, but did he see a scuffed baseball and like the way Mike Scott was running things in the 80s? Yeah, probably. I mean, so it was a different time. That's all I can say on that one. It was a different time.
Okay, let's move ahead here to a couple of these other ones. It says, the zone has never been close to this small. And Ashley pitcher said, you can't pitch up and can't pitch in. You watch older guys, 12 to 15 strikeout games, and it's insane the calls they got. Your thoughts?
I totally agree with that. So that one is true. I actually think they get a little bit more up and down maybe than they used to. Maybe more up actually.
You and I are on the same page because they never fucking called.
They never called this one up here.
Never.
Now you get it. Now you get what this high fastball that's called. Even these high curveballs, which they never called ever back in the day. If you hung one, you didn't get rewarded for it at all. Now if it's in the zone, they'll call a strike. But that's also not true. The umpires right now, from my understanding, they get their report, which is the box that we all see, and they're trying to have the highest strike rate that they can. They want to be as good as they can be. They're trying to do the best job possible. So they're running right around that zone, which is great. So I mean, the players know the zone better than ever. This should make hitting easier, by the way, and pitching a little bit more difficult. That's what I would say. Like just throwing strikes. So walks being up as a pitcher, not that surprised on that, right? Which I think they are. But then let's get into the strikeouts being up. That one is a different approach.
So the width of the plate is the width of the plate, and that's it. So he is right. They certainly are not getting calls off the plate, but I do think they're getting more calls up and down. I actually have a suggestion for Major League Baseball and the Players Association. If you want the ball back in play, can't call this. You've got to get the ball down.
Yeah, they could change the zone.
Right?
Yeah, I mean.
And they should.
Yeah, I know.
Because the problem is, if you're calling this shit up here and guys are trying to chase this up here with the velocities what they are today.
I know.
They're never going to catch up. All right, I'll get you one or two more here, and then you can go.
I got two more I got to run.
Okay. Here's some of the standards complaining about pimping home runs, the bat flips. We're having too much fun.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. I love everybody likes. I mean, they could have even more fun. Go watch the college game. I love it. I love the today's player and the fun.
Is there anyone here that really could set you off?
Well, the velocity ones do. Like as far as the pitching being so much better. There was one in here that I saw earlier, and I'm not buying that. Like, I mean, with the way the guns have the radar guns have changed, the pitching looks the same to me. I mean, they've even recreated like Nolan Ryan. I think, like we were saying, is the hardest thrower ever. They've gone back. There's ways that, with looking at video, you can see how fast the ball might be going. But I mean, the idea that like there's
here's the quote right here. Yeah. I don't think former players appreciate how difficult hitting is now in today's game. Not that it wasn't hard back then, and no discredit to them, but it's different. The state of the game is different. We have to face 100 miles per hour every single night. Quote, they had 3 guys in the league who threw 95, and now the first guy in the bullpen throws 100. Many hitters were clearly of the belief that former players don't understand how hard modern pitchers throw, how pervasive 100 mile per hour fastballs have become, and how new technology has resulted in nasty breaking balls. Another nationally outfit said every generation has a unique thing about it. You can take a superstar for any generation and put them in a different generation. They're going to figure it out. Yada, yada, yada. But obviously, we've seen a boom in velocity and boom in certain stuff. Comparing eras is not apples to apples. Another player said, I think the most irritating thing is like when some guy swings at a pitch. Okay, we talked about that.
Yeah.
All right, talk about the velocity. And they're all thinking that, like, dudes threw 80 miles per hour back then.
And the stuff. Like, so I'm not buying either one of those arguments. Now, are there more? There may be, I think, more guys that are throwing at the higher number in today's game. I think that is, but like the 95 was 100. I mean, like, I'm sorry, the radar gun technology has changed where it catches it right back on the hand versus freaking 3-4 inches out front when things are, or whatever it was. So on the velocity, I'm not buying it. I mean, as far as depth of pitching, yeah, more people are playing today. I think there's likely more depth of pitching in Major League Baseball, but I don't think that the quality at maybe like 1 or 2 guys, I guess, out of the bullpen, they probably have a little bit more depth. That I'd give them that, as far as like just velo, but the actual stuff of the guys, I'm not buying that at all.
Give me your final thoughts on this quote right here. People say guys don't care about putting the ball in play. One National League infielder said, quote, do you watch the old games on TV? The skill level of the game is so much better now. The infielders are great. They have arm strength. Those pitchers back in the day stink. One of our AAA guys would have been like the best closer in baseball 15 years ago. John Gall, president of USA Baseball, your thoughts?
I don't even want to entertain that quote. It's so ridiculous. I'm going to walk out on that one. That's ridiculous.
You should.
All right. Well, you guys have a nice day. That's freaking awful.
Thank you for joining us. Look, the bottom line is when it comes to that, I don't think that people quite understand how nasty some of the pitchers were back in the day. So we're going back 15 years ago, and that brings us basically to like 2009. What the fuck is wrong with you? Do you realize what was going on back then with Verlander in his prime and Max Scherzer in his prime? Like, it's the same dudes too. They're still cutting your shit up. Now, as they reach 40, and you motherfuckers are complaining about, oh man, back 15 years ago, you stupid motherfuckers. What's wrong with you? Come on. I'll just write that off as just one ignorant statement. On top of that, Gall talked about it, and he was right. When you look at velocity, and I do think there's a lot of dudes that are throwing really hard, and Driveline's done a great job of getting guys to maximize velocity. But the way they measure velocity now and the way they measured velocity back then is totally different. So why do I think there's more strikeouts now than ever before? It's all the gosh damn hitting gurus that are teaching people to swing straight up. If you're swinging straight up This creates a hole. You see this? That's a hole. And so when we have holes in swings and guys trying to launch high fastballs up here, they're fucked. And pitchers have gotten smart. What are they doing? They're pitching up in the zone. Hard in, up in the zone, soft away. And they're throwing a shit ton of breaking balls. It's just part of it. That's the game. So if you look at the hardest throwers of all time, I actually found an article here which lays out what is perceived to be the 10 fastest MLB pitchers. Let's go over it. It says who threw the fastest pitch in the 2023 season. Minnesota Twins closer Johan Duran uncorked the fastest pitch of 2023 and the seventh fastest pitch since the recording began in 2008. It was a 104.8 mile per hour four-seam fastball to Mariners third baseman Eugenio Suarez on July 30th. It says, what is the fastest pitch ever thrown in MLB? Well, according to this, it was Nolan Ryan with a 108.1 mile per hour reading according to the Doppler laser radar, readings that were used in 1974. So we're ranking the 10 fastest pitchers in MLB. Number 10, Brad Lidge, contemporary of mine, 102. Number 9, Matt Lindstrom. I remember this dude. This guy was fucking filthy. Very uncomfortable to get in the box against. 102 miles per hour. He had a 17-21 record, 3.68 ERA, 327 strikeouts. Number 8, Justin Verlander, 102. Career stats, 250 and 139, 324 ERA, 3,283 strikeouts, and still pitching just as he was 15 fucking years ago. Number 7, Brian Wilson. This is impressive. I didn't expect this. I knew he threw hard, but I didn't realize he threw 102.2, 3.30 ERA in his illustrious career-saving baseball games. Number 6, and this guy threw hard, Jonathan Broxton, 102.8. These are all guys I faced. All guys I faced 15 fucking years ago. And they're on this top 10 list. Yet we think today that everybody throws 104 and this, I mean, just geez. Holy shit, man. Mark Wohlers, 103. Joel Zumaya, another contemporary of mine, 104.8. He threw fucking Ched. I'll throw another guy in there that I faced. Ubaldo Jimenez, like he was living at 100. I got to imagine he had to have run it up there near 105 at one point. The other guy, Mike McDougal, someone that never gets talked about. He was an all-star, Wake Forest guy, Kansas City. He was throwing 102 and his ball was fucking dipping that much. Number 3, who's still doing it, Aroldis Chapman, 106 miles per hour. Everyone talks about Aroldis Chapman. And again, let's go back 14 years, and guess who made his big league debut? Aroldis fucking Chapman. So, for all you snowflakes that are just entering the league thinking you guys have it so tough, wake the fuck up. What's wrong with you guys? Seriously. Number 2 on the list, Bob Feller. And I don't know how accurate this can be. I mean, look, he was active from 1936 to 1941 and then went to serve in World War II. And then he was active again from 1945 to 1956. They say he threw 107.6 miles per hour. The Indians legend with the high leg kick pitched 18 seasons for the same team reached 107.6 in 1946. Feller's pitch would stand as the fastest recorded for 28 seasons. A prodigy who made his debut at 17. had 2,581 career strikeouts, third all-time upon his retirement, and he sure would have had a whole lot more if he pitched all those years he was serving our country. So, Bob Feller, boom. Thank you for your service. And then number 1 on the list, Nolan Ryan, 108.1 miles per hour, 5,714 strikeouts. The parameters of the ranking, the numbers are what they are. As they say, although different technologies have been used over the years, these figures are recognized as the highest numbers ever recorded. But let's not forget that baseball has been played professionally in the United States since the 1860s, and there was no technology to measure speed for more than 80 years. We will never have any way of knowing whether players in the late 19th century and early 20th century were throwing the same type of gas as Nolan Ryan. Look, I'm going to say no, just because as the years go on, obviously just we become physically bigger. I mean, you look at the old toilet seats even, right? They used to be low to the ground. I mean, you get way down there to take a shot. That's because people are shorter. I mean, doors used to be shorter. So naturally, it's just physics. If guys are bigger, then typically they're going to be stronger and they're going to be able to throw harder. And yes, there are more bigger guys now at this point, but it wasn't like there weren't big guys 15, 20, 30, 40 years ago. The other thing I would say is that I love how he says, go watch. That's the stupidest fucking quote of all time. It really is one of the worst. But go watch the old time guys, or 15 years ago, all those guys stink. Dude, I used to watch guys in the 80s when I was playing in the 2000s. So I'd go back 15, 20 years, right? And I'd watch an old game. And yes, I wasn't blown away by the velocity that these pitchers were thrown with, but I was taken aback by the movement of the pitches. These motherfuckers were cheating on a nightly basis, whether it was spitballing, tobacco juice, scuffing it up, whatever. Look at some of the pitches that Greg Maddux threw that were moving this far. I mean, it was insane. So now it's, hey, we're checking for every little thing. Look, the best way to compare generations is simply to look at who was the best of the best in that generation. That's why when it comes to the greatest baseball player of all time, there's no question in my mind it was Babe Ruth. The reason being, not only did he pitch, but when he hit, he was the best of the best. And what he did from a power perspective, hitting more home runs than any other American League team, was just insane. So, because of that, look, Shohei Ohtani right now might be the most physically gifted baseball player we've ever seen. He throws upwards of 100 miles per hour, when healthy that is, and can hit a ball about as far as anybody. So I could totally dig that argument. But ultimately, you're going to have to wait till Ohtani's done, and then we could go back and look at his numbers and look at his WAR. And not that WAR is the end-all, be-all, but there's no secret. The people at top of the WAR list are fucking Barry Bonds and Babe Ruth from an offensive perspective. That's it. Barry Bonds was the best player I've ever seen, and it's not close. It's not. Best player that we've seen in our generation. So, okay, let's see if there's anything else I want to get into. A little bit more, just about the difference between then and now. I will say 15, 20 years ago, even, that dudes played through injuries. That's different now, where a guy has a crack in a toenail and he's out for a fucking week. This happens all the time. The slightest tenderness or whatever it is, and the trainers are shutting them down. And I think for good reason, right? They're thinking about the longevity of the season. They're thinking about the longevity of the guy's career. Totally get it. But 15, 20 years ago, it was different. You know what they did? They fucking pumped you full of painkillers and anti-inflammatories and then sent you back on the fucking field. It happened. Happened all the time. Happened to me. I played with a cracked rib, literally a broken fucking rib for 3-4 weeks. Cracked. Every time I sneezed, I fell to the ground. I would have tears in my eyes. Every time I just bumped anything or ran into anything, anybody. It was awful. But you know what I did? Hey, anti-inflammatories, a couple of Vicodin, a greenie, and I was good to go. Is this different back then? Different. The shit baseballs, the balls in play now for guys as far as hitters, you guys are getting a clean ball. When I got a clean ball. Our generation got a clean ball. The generation before, like every year that you go back from like 80s to 70s to 60s, felt like worse and worse, right? And then you go back to the one incident where they had where the dude ended up hitting the head and passing away. Like that's when they changed the ball because the ball was getting so fucking dark. So that's something that I think everyone needs to take into consideration when it comes to just being able to hit. I think the ballparks too now are more hitter friendly than they've ever been. There's a few that are big and still big, like Detroit. The Toronto one's actually playing bigger for whatever reason. You get LA at night, the Californias at night. Obviously, you got Oracle Park in that deep right center. So the ballpark factor always should be taken into consideration. And then the one thing, and I'm going to bring all this up with Will Clark again. So this might be a repetitive daily hustle backed up with Deuces Wild. I just think it's fascinating. I'm looking forward. I talked to him this morning on the phone about a couple different things, and I sent him the article. And so he was digging into it, and I was giving him a couple of the quotes. Really looking forward to having his perspective here. But let's not forget, for all the modern players that want to critique and criticize that the play 15, 20 years ago was not what it is today, did you guys forget the fucking steroid era? Dudes were juiced up out of their fucking minds. Try hitting off some of these guys that were walking out there looking like they're about to join a fucking Mr. America contest. And then the roid rage, all of it. And as someone who played clean through that fucking era, you think that was easy? Hell no. Come on, man. Dude, you had juiced players. You had juiced balls at times. I mean, now that's the other thing. I can make the argument for today's hitters. I mean, the balls are fucking juiced. No doubt. 1,000%. If you get juice the players, juice the balls. Well, we had to deal with juiced players back then. Playing Major League Baseball is not easy. Trust me. It is not easy today. It wasn't easy 20 years ago. It wasn't easy 40 years ago. It wasn't easy 60 years ago, 80 years ago, whatever. And the poor me snowflake mentality, though, that, we just get ridiculed and it's so much harder. And shut the fuck up. Seriously. I don't want to hear it. I had to hear the same shit 15 years ago, 20 years ago, whatever. I heard it about, oh yeah, the game's changed. Fine. Whatever. You deal with it. You move on, because in 20 years from now, the next generation of players is going to be saying the same shit about your generation. So stay humble or be humbled. Remember to always respect those who pave the way to play this beautiful game that you get to play today for a living and make millions of dollars. That's it. I was always really grateful. And yeah, sure, I've heard some things along the way when I play. I'm like, well, fuck, man. Like, we got to do this or we got that. And you got to face this guy or that. I had plenty of excuses back then too. But my recommendation to the current Major League Baseball player, keep those thoughts to your fucking self. There's no use and no gain by coming out and publicly bitching about it because it makes you guys look like a bunch of pussies. That's it. Everyone have a fantastic day. I'll see you tonight on Deuces. Well, oh, geez. Hold on. This is my wife's computer, and I think I figured out how to use it. See ya tonight, 6.